Have you heard about Jebbit? Jebbit is a platform that lets you create things like product matches, personality quizzes, gift guides, trivia, and more. These experiences are fully branded and easy to create and can be launched on any channel. D2C brand Pour Moi Skincare has been using Jebbit for years and said, awareness, education, conversion, our Jebbit quiz does it all. Start for free at tryjebbit.com/today. On with the show.
Hello, and welcome to the DTC podcast. This week, we're super lucky and excited to welcome Brennan Dunn to the show. Brennan is the co-founder of RightMessage, a tool that helps make automated segmentation and website personalization accessible and easy for just about any business. He's also the founder of Double Your Freelancing, a community and training resource for over 50,000 freelancers and agencies who want to, well, double their results. His writing has been featured by Forbes, Mixergy, Lifehacker, and many others. Brennan is also a pilot, and I'm kind of excited to dive into that because that's a personal aspiration of mine. But yeah, how are you doing, Brennan? Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Kyle. I am doing well. Like I mentioned, I've got a big move ahead of me. So been kind of in this I think I actually, when we were emailing, I was like, yeah, definitely want to be on, but it needs to be soon because I'm about like everything you see here. It's about to go in a shipping container and being sent overseas. So yeah, I'm doing well, all things considered.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I know it's a busy time for everyone, but especially you. We love to start these podcasts with just a little bit of a value rocket. And so, first of all, what would you say your particular area of expertise is, your zone of genius, if you will?
I think, I mean, personalization is a bit of a loaded term, but I think really the better way of putting it, which is less ambiguous, because I have thoughts on what I think how personalization is misused as a term. But I would say dynamic niching is probably the thing that I'm most excited about. And that's what I've been doing a lot of homework around.
Dynamic niching. And wow, I've never actually heard that term. So is that essentially segmenting your audience based on their behavior? Is that?
It's basically just real life. So it's like if you and I were talking in person, say over Zoom, and I wanted you to do something, right? Like buy something or whatever. I'm going to take into account who you are, how you're acting, what I know about you and all that. And I'm going to use that to influence the way I describe or position my offer, like what I want you to do. So it's really just taking that kind of age-old model of not conversational, I think is a bit also misused, but more of like, what are my impressions and my backstory knowledge of like the person that I'm trying to sell to, whether I'm trying to sell you something for money or ask somebody to go on a date with me or whatever it might be, right? Like we all do this. We all try to get somebody to agree with what we want them to do. So, dynamic positioning is the way I think about that is just saying, well, you've got a website or you've got email, content being sent or whatever else. How can we reshape the message of the things somebody's consuming on the fly based on behavioral or first or third party data?
Awesome. And what's one thing about that most people don't know? Like, what's one thing about dynamic niching that most people don't know, but they probably should?
I mean, I think the big thing is most marketers especially know that niching out, like niched products, niche websites, whatever, outperform generic, right? But a lot of us have things to offer that have wide use or wide applicabilities. So I think the big thing, it's not as much of not knowing, but it's more of we all know niche businesses are really, really effective when somebody in that niche is looking at buying. So the overall conversion rates tend to be higher when you've got the right person looking at the right product for them. So ultimately, if you care about really relatively simple ways to pretty sizably increase overall conversions, then this is something that I think a lot of people think of personalization as sticking somebody's first name in an email. But this is well beyond that.
That's what I was going to ask. I want to get into those key things people can do, but just even to start with, what are you said you had a contentious idea of personalization, or you think that term is overused essentially. What do people call personalization that just really isn't cutting the mustard?
I mean, I think it's just it's like I kind of look at it as Mad Lib style. kind of stuff, right? Where,
Mm.
I mean, I don't think when I get an email from a brand that has my name at the top of it, I know what's happening. It's mail merging. It's, it's basically, there's nothing novel about that. It's more about thinking through who actually is this person and what is it that they uniquely need from me? And then how can I better present what I have for them? So it's more about just saying like, hey, Eric, or hey, Kyle, blah, 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 blah. It's about like actually, I see a lot of this, like you see it with outreach tools, you see it with email marketing software where they advertise their personalization abilities, but it's usually about injecting like custom field data into an email or something.
Totally. So one of the things that we wanted to do in this podcast is get so like we always like to do is get some free consulting essentially. We've got this situation where we have this fast growing newsletter. We're just under 15,000 subscribers on it. We have tremendous positive feedback about it in terms of the businesses that are signing up with the agency and the actual comments and people like it. And then on top of this, we're building an advertising model there. But then on top of this, we're also launching our membership tier and our monthly workshops, which are sort of the crown jewel of this membership program. And we're sort of like just today, we were having discussions, I think, about dynamic niching, about basically finding a way to message people about the right things, because one of the things that we're worried about is if we message everyone about everything, our open rates of our newsletter, which we base so much of our growth plans on, could be affected. So I'm interested in your thoughts. And so keep in mind, we're a weekly newsletter, and then we have monthly workshops that feed into our membership tier.
Okay, so the product ladder would be free subscriber, one-off workshop, monthly.
This is up for debate, whether it goes. Right now we have the idea of what maybe we're going to make people go into the monthly on a trial basis perhaps and just have that as the one product. But just looking at the numbers today, we did extremely well in our first one on standalone sales. So having that as an option, I think, is going to be important. Sorry, KG, go ahead.
Well, but before we tactically dive into it, I'd love for you first to myth bust a philosophy that I kind of have, and I imagine many other people have, that I have a feeling you're going to poke holes in very effectively. So we send this newsletter out every week. It's packed full of value. My philosophy is let's email our entire list, and if they don't want to receive every single message from us, well, unsubscribe. See you later. And my thinking there is I'd rather have a list of people that want to hear from me every single time, kind of like a good friend, rather than this sort of lukewarm list. They just want the newsletter. And so I don't know, like, I'm sure there's something really dumb about that. And I'd love for you to tell me exactly why that's a dumb aspect.
Frankly, it's what I do. I think you can go really wild and you can say like, Frank, the way I look at it is I'm lucky to knock out maybe 1 to 2 pieces of content a month. So if I was to say this content is for this subsegment, you're just, I don't have a content team, right? So I can't do like that amount of curation. And I think that's kind of what it's getting at, which is curating available content. So I'm fine with that. But I think, to what Eric just asked about, I think there's actually something that could be interesting to model out, which is this concept of an offer funnel, where I think what a really interesting place to be in is when you can say, I'm going to create like new content, right? So I'm going to create a great new article, and it might not have specific applicability to everyone on the receiving end, but it's original content. We put a lot of time into creating it. You send it out, but then dynamically, both in the email itself, but also if you're doing like a newsletter where they click through to a blog post or something, when they're on your site, making it so you're basically you're creating personalized call to actions that reflect 2 things: where somebody is in your offer funnel. Now I can talk about that in a second, along with any horizontal information you have about them. So like, how do you color the description of that offer? So, case in point would be, I mentioned, we have my main business is called RightMessage, and we have an offer funnel. The way I think about an offer funnel would be given who somebody is and what I know about them, what do I think that they should do next? Or what do I think they should do next? And that's kind of presupposed on this, one of the books I read early on when I started to get into this kind of world was 15 or so years ago. It was a book called Don't Make Me Think. And the
I
idea,
know that one.
yeah. So,
The
I mean, it's
usability
basically,
book.
people are dumb. They don't want to need to learn your website or learn your thing. Like, just make it obvious, right? So that idea, I think, has a lot of universal applicability to it. It's not anything new. It's just kind of human nature. I think what's interesting is when you think about, well, so with RightMessage, we have our offer funnel would be, we want an anonymous person on our website to join our email list, usually through our email course. We want somebody who is on our email course. They're going to be branched off depending on how valuable we think they are. If they're really valuable, I want them to book a demo or they get on a call with me. If they're not as valuable, I want them to start a trial, a free trial. When ultimately all paths converge back on a trial, because I want them to do a demo. When they complete the demo, I want them to now start an account, so start a trial. When you trial, my goal with you then, the next stage, think of it as like a state machine. Next stage would be to become an active customer. But then you could either go directly into, say, the highest tier plan, or you could start with the basic plan. And if you're on the basic plan, I'm going to want you to pay more, right? Revenue expansion. And then if you cancel, I want you to come back and start it all over. So that would be like our offer funnel. So what we've built is we've built at the email service provider layer or level an automation that fires every time anyone's state changes. So if they sign up for a trial, this reruns. If they convert from trial to paid, that reruns. They join our email course, that reruns. And what it does is kind of like it's like a Plinko board. If you've ever watched The Price is Right, I don't know if it aired in Canada,
of course,
but
of course.
So Plinko board kind of style, right? So the goal is, somebody ends up with the next offer. And what's really powerful about that is that data gets then attached as segmentation data to their record in your email database. So that when you're sending out your weekly newsletter or whatever it might be, you can insert as like a PS or, somewhere mixed into the thing, effectively a call to action that is specific to what somebody should do next. So the benefit there would be, say you're emailing out weekly, like in our case, we get somebody on our email list through the email course. They're getting pitched, let's say they're lower value. We pitch them on the trial. They sign up for a trial a day or two later. The next email they get from me, my newsletter, they'll be mid-trial. So then they'll get something about pointing them to the learning center. Like, hey, I hope you're enjoying the trial. Well, and what's nice is I just need to write, right? I just need to create this content, and the layering in of these promotions, if you will, is done at the template level. So it's something I don't need to do every time I do a newsletter. I don't need to be thinking about the personalization element. I'm just thinking about, I've got this thing that will figure out where somebody is in the offer funnel, come up with what offer they need to be shown. And then that offer goes through a bit of a round robin system that I've developed so that it's not the same text being spit out every week. There's like a stock of usually 10 variants, and it'll just kind of rotate through. But then it's also taking into account that horizontal data of like, we have things like we capture on our confirmation page when somebody opts into our email course. We have a little, so if you go to rightmessage.com, you opt in the email course, get to a confirmation page that surveys you. It says, hey, you're about to get less than 1 in 5 minutes, but we have, I think it's like 8 or 9 different questions that we ask them, point and click questions that help us find out the why. So why are they here? Why did you join the email course? And there's 4 options. I want to get more leads. Cool. Second thing is, what kind of business do you have? I have a software business or e-commerce. To make this personalized, choose e-com. What email service provider do you use? I use Drip, and so on and so forth. And how happy I ask things like, how happy are you with subscriber growth, your subscriber to customer conversion rates, and all that kind of stuff.
And this is how you determine value as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That's how it routes them. Right. So, because part of that is we also ask them their average lead, how many leads they're getting per day. Right. So if they say like 100 plus, they're being routed to book a demo with me. If they say 1 to 10, they're going to self-serve, right? So all that happens. And what's nice is the email course they get, there are about 20,000 variations of that course that are based off that data. Now,
Wow.
it's really, it seems overwhelming, but what it really involved was there's a baseline email course that I wrote, a non-lesson course. And I'm using liquid templating to dynamically show different paragraphs of text. So if they say I'm a software company, here's the inline one paragraph thing about, how a software company could benefit with personalization or whatever. And then I just go through the list and there's 4 options. So it's basically like an if else type thing, right? And there's a lot of that. And it did add some. It took about an hour or 2 to create all to go from one variation to 20,000 took about an hour of work. But people really like it because they're saying like, if they say I use Klaviyo and I'm a e-com company and, they're currently say using Sumo, they're going to get language about Klaviyo and Sumo and e-commerce examples and stuff that just make it seem like to them, like when they finally see the software at the end of the funnel, like, okay, like this is a tool that, they've identified potential frustrations with Sumo, namely no awareness of a returning customer or subscriber. They're calling out the fact that like there's e-com all over it. It seems like a very niche product. But we have software companies using us. We have agencies using us. We have, all these different types of businesses who use us. But what we've done is we've positioned what it is we have, which is here's a software with a bunch of features. And
liquid templating being one of the features on RightMessage, because that's not something out of the box on a lot of these ESPs.
No, liquid templating is a so with products like Drip and ConvertKit and Customer.io and
ActiveCampaign.
ActiveCampaign, unfortunately not. No, they have their own homegrown. It's one of my. I love ActiveCampaign as a product. If they could just fix their templating, it would make me a lot more willing to recommend it. But it's just the ability to do. It actually emerged out of Shopify, so it's almost like a programming language that you can put in email content that allows you to say like, to set up these kind of complex conditionals and stuff.
Got it.
But what's nice is, you end up with 20,000 potential email courses that somebody could go through. And we get replies daily with people who are going through it saying like, this is like they expected, I guess, because we're a personalization software that we're probably doing that. But, it does work because people want the things seemingly made just for them. So it's, the next RightMessage can't afford to be a e-com only integrates with Klaviyo, only does this, we can't do that. There's no need to when we can serve a lot of different needs. So we figured, just needs to be done on the fly.
I love it. Just one more question about this, and then I really want to move on to some practical things that D2C brands can do to engage real personalization. So I love this idea of, right now we have people subscribe to the newsletter. There's an option to do a quiz basically, but we're not really using that data. Is there an effect on opt-in rates when you do include these optional, first of all, is yours optional? Like in order to be a lead on your system, do you need to go through that whole survey?
No,
and for someone like us that has this one value, we really want them on the newsletter. And then we also want to know these things that could, because that idea of routing people based on their challenges, we have very clearly defined avatars, on our thing. We could break those out and start serving some custom messaging to them. But I'm just, what are the effects on sign up by asking more info?
Yeah. So that's the $1 million question is usually, all right, so we're going to put friction in between the visitor and an opt-in form, right? There's going to be a survey, let's say. What effect does that have? So we've experimented a lot with this. We obviously have our own data that we sit on. So we have about 300 customers, and that gives us a ton of data that we're able to play with. What we've seen typically is that so if somebody answers that first question, their retention rate is high. So if you ask another question, they're like 95% going to do that one too. It's that first question, which is the hard one. Where we've seen people fall off the tracks is typically having too involved of a question up front. So this would be, it's like, what is your dream in life? And you have these long 5 options with each of them as kind of a lengthy sentence like that. It's difficult to answer that. Whereas, hey, have you started a business? Yes, no. That's a very simple, everyone can answer that. So what we do is we have a single question that we ask pre-opt-in, and there are ways of segmenting. So what we do is we have, I mean, this goes into the feature set of RightMessage, but we can also answer questions through behavior. So if they came from drip.com or convertkit.com to our website, we're never going to ask them what they use. We assume they use ConvertKit if they came from ConvertKit. Likewise, if they came from like a software blog that we're tracking, that we get decent referral traffic from, we don't ask them. If they came from like, say they came from, you put up show notes of this talk, you link to RightMessage, I'm going to go in and say, if they came from Eric and Kyle's site, then I'm just going to assume they're e-commerce. So if you go to our site through the show notes, you're never going to be asked what type of business. And maybe that's wrong of us, but it's something we usually do. But we usually ask one question up front, and we use that to personalize the opt-in form. So let's say they came from, I forgot the exact language we use, but let's say they came from HubSpot.com's integrations directory. They come to our site, they look around, they get the little pop-up that says, what kind of business do you run? Software company. Their opt-in form, both for exit intent from now on out, from now on to after blog posts and everything else, is literally going to say, learn how to increase your software sign-up rate and better segment your HubSpot list form, right? So that, compared to the default, which is like, learn how to grow your business and better segment your list, that converts, it's about 20-30% higher conversion rates there, but you've got that friction up front, right? So our net overall, because we've A/B tested this, our net overall conversion rate increase is about 10-12% or so. So we're still happy with that. I mean, that's still sizable enough given enough volume. And we've had some people, like we have some customers, we just did a case study who got a 300% improvement, but they have a very big and intensive thing where they're routing people. They have like 20 different lead magnets. They're routing people to the right one, depending on like, are they a student? Yes, no. And then all these follow-up things. So, I mean, it doesn't, it's not because we have amazing forms or anything like that. It's just, we're able to deliver a more relevant, more specific, niched, if you will, opt-in form. But then like you asked about, well, actually we're going to move into overall DTC stuff, right? So
yeah, let's do it.
Unless you want me to jump ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I'd love to do that. I am specifically because you obviously have such an advanced understanding, of dynamic niching. I'd be curious where the low-hanging fruit lies for DTC brands. What do you see most of them missing that they could, take an hour or two and implement and see some great results?
I mean, I think the biggest thing would be better awareness of when returning subscribers and or customers are on site. So one of my favorite outreach tactics is to go to let's say I'm on your email list and you link me to your site, and I go there and a giant pop-up pops up saying, give me your email address and I'll give you 10% off. You just emailed me, right? Like that's our number one thing, which is like, why are you, that's not only potentially going to cause somebody to scramble to find another email address that they own. But it also has the downside of being a missed opportunity, where you could instead say like, hey, welcome back, Kyle. Here's a thing you might be interested in or something, as like a pop-up or something that might show when they go to leave the site. So I think the biggest thing would be, at a minimum, say if they're anonymous, you want them on your list. Usually with DTC, it's an exchange for like a coupon or something. And if they're known, then show them something, and that could be based off that offer funnel. Or if you've got like just a portfolio of random stuff and it's not really, doesn't make sense to line anything up, just dump them to like, your latest products or something like that. Because you already have their info. You don't need that. So that's the thing that a lot of our e-com companies are doing, where they're just saying like, when returning subscribers are back on site, like just don't show the email opt-ins any longer.
I love that. So that's some low-hanging fruit. Give us some of those juicy bits on the top. Are there any, like, have you seen some really, or have you implemented some just really cool examples of segmentation in the D2C space you could tell us about?
Yeah. So we have one of our customers is a jewelry store, and what they're doing. So every marketer would love to be able to say, Facebook has a ton of great data. I'd love to know like that data, right? And I know there's privacy stuff and all that we need to kind of contend with. But one thing that people are doing is they're saying, well, I'm running ads on Facebook. And so this company in particular, they run ads, and it's variants of ad, like kind of they're all linking to their homepage, which again is, I have thoughts on that, but I'll ignore that for now. All these ads are linking to the homepage, and what they're doing is they have really 3 different core ad sets, one of which is targeting single men, one's targeting married men, and one's targeting women. And so they sell not just jewelry, they sell like engagement rings and anniversary rings and all that kind of stuff, right? So what they do, if you are being served an ad that is only targeting single men on Facebook, they what they're doing is they are passing along that targeting segment data in the URL that then goes to the site. So if that person clicks on that ad and makes their way to the site, the only way they'll ever be shown that ad is if they went into Facebook and said, I'm single, right? And I'm male. So, you know, that's what they've done. And they've made it so when those people are on the site, all the messaging, all the opt-in incentives, everything is focused on engagement, right? And the engagement is in like the marital status, not like marketing speak.
Yeah. That's very
cool. Yeah. But if you received a similar ad, but you said to Facebook that you're married, everything will be then focused on anniversary stuff. So you basically end up with this e-com jewelry store that's all obsessed with all things anniversary. You're not seeing young couples. You're seeing like, you know, gray-haired people renewing their vows or whatever, right? But if you came to that same site as and I think they actually did go further where they're passing along age range data too. So this is targeting single men who are between 18 to 30, right? And then it'll show like the primary testimonial, like on the right below the homepage hero, along with like the imagery will be younger couples. And they've gone all out and they've made it so like, you know, people want to see themselves in the product. So if you are a 25-year-old who's going to pop the question soon, you're seeing people who are about your age and, you know, are talking about getting married and stuff like that, and language about that, and focused on certain products surfacing that are, again, I don't really know the difference between like a wedding ring and a anniversary ring, if that's even a thing. I know anniversary stuff tends to be less rings, more like bracelets and stuff like that. Anyway, they've done that very well, and they've made it so what they're able to accomplish is effectively being niched toward the fact that the ad somebody clicked on was targeting a certain type of person, and they're using, and
right, like it allows you to be
layered,
like quantum niching. It's sort of like, depending on, you know, is the cat alive or dead? It depends on the cookie from Facebook. That's my question then. Do they set cookies for the rest of their web experience? So if they come back, they're not going to see, they'll still
if they come back with no URL parameters, a week later, it still knows that they are a single man. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I bring up Minority Report on this podcast probably every third, you know, that idea of like, welcome, John, you know, you like V-neck sweaters or whatever. I said that exact line probably a half dozen times, but that's what it really appears to be building towards in some ways, right? Like,
well, it's like another example would be, we have fitness companies who use us, and same deal, where if you're like a 22-year-old woman, you do not want to see a bunch of testimonials from 50-year-olds, right?
Yep.
Like it's
negative effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just,
And I think the solution there is either you niche down, you're all focused on a certain type of fitness things, like say you're selling supplements or vitamins. I mean, you niche down to focusing on one thing, right? And that does well, but you know, you can kind of do that on the fly, is kind of the argument we're making.
Yeah, it's super ninja. I mean, that you can leverage Facebook's, or any ad platform surgical targeting and have that sort of ad sent really carry through on the web page, I think is something most people don't even think is possible. And that's specifically what RightMessage does, right?
Correct.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you can also that's behavioral. So you can also do self-segmenting, which is more the quiz or survey kind of model where it's like, oh, I want to lose weight, or I want to gain more muscle or whatever. And then, you can then use that to affect everything from then on out.
So cool. And something else you mentioned earlier that I'm curious about are, you said that folks, well, you alluded to the idea that folks probably shouldn't drive traffic to their homepage, even if it's, dynamic. I'm wondering what, and it's might be a little too vague, but I'm curious where you think DTC, natured ads should go to. Should they go to a product display page? Should they go to a pre-sales page, lead magnet? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think it depends on what it is you're offering. And again, full disclosure, I'm not an e-com expert at all. So I don't know probably enough about that to make a authoritative answer. But, to cycle back to the homepage thing, I'm actually okay with it if if I go to Amazon.com, my Amazon.com is not your Amazon.com, right? So, I mean, this is an example of what I'm getting at where, Amazon's taking into account behavioral cues, like what products you've looked at, along with what they know about what you've already purchased. And God knows what else they're doing under the hood. And you can do the same thing where you could say, like, we have, for instance, some companies that use us who they're driving everyone to, say, a homepage or a landing page where they're using us to create hundreds or thousands of permutations of that page. So I'm not opposed to the actual URL being accessed being the same. But what I do think is often missed opportunity would be if somebody's looking, especially with search ads, if somebody's looking for a very specific thing and you just dump them on, your generic, like browse the catalog homepage, that's a bit problematic. But I think like if you're doing an ad that's more intercepting somebody, where it's just more of a Facebook ad where, there's not intent behind it. It's more you're targeting them due to what they've already shown interest in or whatever else. Then, I mean, again, I have zero issue with some combination of, well, what is let's say, to go back to the weight loss example or the fitness site example, let's say they're running a few different ads or a few different types of ads. Some of them are talking about strength training. Some of them are talking about burning fat. Some of them are talking about getting better sleep or something and not being so fatigued. You can absolutely pass into, and you should pass into the website context about how they self-segmented by clicking that ad, and compound that with any data that you can pull out through that targeting. So if you're targeting, this ad, and this involves having a bunch of layers of ad campaigns running concurrently. But if you're targeting, say they click on an ad about losing weight, and they are between 18 to 30 and female, you go to the site, you then have 3 bits of data that you can permanently store pre-opt-in. And then let's say you do hit them with the pop-up saying, hey, type in your email address and get 10% off. What's great is you can get that email address, and then not only are you starting off with a new contact record with an email address, but you also get pushed up female, 18 to 30, and want to lose weight. So then the marketing emails you send, those onboarding emails, can be focused on really those 3 things, probably more so the lose weight angle. And that stuff works incredibly well because it's not about just capturing on that one landing page, which is how I think a lot of people think. It can be get them onto the site, let them browse around a bit, then they go to maybe leave without buying, and then they give up their email address. That's when you can take all that data that you collected, 6 page views ago, and actually persist it.
So much value in that. I think, like, as an agency, we really specialize in pre-sales content, creating engaging experiences that allow us to kind of go broader with our targeting, and then allow those engagements and that experience to kind of help self-select and just sort of like overall increase conversion rates. But what we're not doing, often we're building these experiences that are sort of pretty customized to our audience, but when we send them to the client site, in a lot of cases, we're not greeting them in a way that would probably give us massive conversion lift if we were customizing it. That's really, really interesting. We only have a bit more time here, and I really wanted to talk about the right use of SMS? I know it's going to be different on a case-by-case basis, but it is such a powerful technology in terms of, open rates and engagement and all of that. I'm interested to hear your sort of philosophy of where you use it, how you think of SMS marketing.
So I've frankly only ever used it twice, or two different roles, I should say. So my other business besides RightMessage is a company called W Freelancing, and it's basically selling online courses for freelancers. And what I've done with SMS there is, so the tool I use both now and previously, I used to use Drip, I use ConvertKit now. They don't have any built-in SMS stuff at all. So what I've ended up doing is through a combination of writing to custom fields with Zapier and Twilio, being able to send easily. So all I need to do is say, set a custom field with a message, or set the field message with whatever. And then that'll notify Zapier, it'll send a text, and then it'll purge that message field so I can set it again in the future. But where I've used that is for two different things. One of which is when I haven't done them in a while, but when I used to do a lot of webinars, I would do it there just to like remind people like, hey, 10 minutes from now, going live, click here or check your email, and the link's also there.
And what's key there is the immediacy, right? That you're using it. You're not using it to be like, hey, next week this is happening, or this is, the real,
like, that it's happening live. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And the only other way I've done that too is if, so I have a lot of evergreen pitch sequences that fire off. And part of that is also when the pitch does open up, or when the sales window does open up, a text goes out. But I've never done anything with like conversational SMS and all that, which I know is possible. I just haven't done anything like that.
Nice. Well, hopefully maybe this will open a door of more e-com innovations flooding your way.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who only do D2C, and it's yeah. I mean, I want to get more into it. We're getting there through naturally just our customer base. We're getting more e-commerce companies. I'm getting to look into more accounts and help them get set up and stuff that are doing that. But
well, let us know if there's any that we should interview, because we're always on the lookout for innovative D2C brands.
Yeah, I can follow up with you over email with that. But yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, it's fascinating because there's so much that I think it's a little, frankly, it's a bit harder sometimes because there's not as clearly defined offer funnels there might be for like somebody who sells like an ebook and then a course and then a coaching product or something, where it's a little more linear.
Yeah.
But there's definitely application for it. Like in your case, like you were saying with your funnel, right? Where you want people to maybe buy the transactional workshop. And then there's other layers of like trying the membership site or the membership product, and then converted, monthly, whatever. Maybe you end up doing like a lifetime thing or an annual plan. You could then pitch them on that, like, hey, save 20% by paying upfront for a year. So yeah, I mean, like, I think a lot of us do have product funnels or offer funnels, even if it's just more of even for things like with e-com, where you might have a giant portfolio of different things you sell, but it might make sense to be able to say, well, if somebody like if we know X about somebody, like this is the standard path that they should probably go down. They should start with this product and then go to that product or something. And I mean, it makes sense more so, I think, than it might immediately seem.
And for anyone who's earlier on in their dynamic niching journey, which is probably just about everybody, I'm curious, what are your favorite tools, resources, books for someone who really wants to dive into this?
I mean, there's not, frankly, a lot out there. I am actually.
You invented the term? Did you invent the term?
I mean, I haven't heard anyone use it before.
Yeah, I think it's your term.
It's a great term.
Yeah, my term. No,
marketers need terms. Right? You need to have your terms.
I mean, there's, I think, like, there's people who've talked about segmentation. There's people like, I haven't frankly gone through stuff with Ryan Levesque with the Ask Method, I think. Ask Method, yep. Talks about this stuff. There's a lot of good stuff about like discovery funnels, if you will, right? Where I think a lot of that falls short though is on if that's the if condition, is getting that info is the if condition, what's the then that should happen? And that's what, frankly, a lot of the content strategy we have at RightMessage is trying to fill in these gaps. Because a lot of people, you read these articles and they're like, personalizations, the next big thing for 2020. Now, I'm sure they'll say for 2021 now, but it's kind of weak when it comes to like, well, what does it actually mean, right? So we're trying to do our part, and with like the material we release. I'm also working on a book too that's focused on kind of like what we talked about today. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing what I can, but I am starting to see a lot more on it. Not just the conceptual side, which has been there forever, but the implementation and technical side too.
I love that. That's a really good way to put it in terms of the if and the then statement. So here's to 21 being more about the then for marketers. Utilizing this data to send the right message to the right people at the right time. Brennan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the DTC podcast today. This was a lot of fun, and I think what we're as we work on our funnel, we may send you a few midnight messages and get you to consult a little bit on how we can streamline it. That would be fantastic. And I got to say, I'm thrilled to have gotten one of the final interviews in your man cave there. It looks like a nice space.
Yeah, I can't promise. We don't have a house yet, so I don't know where we'll be. We're wandering around the. I don't know.
Are you gonna fly there? I mean, like, are you gonna fly your own plane?
Next summer, it's too cold. I'd be crossing the Arctic, so I'd be going through Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Faroe Islands, and then Scotland. You don't want to do it now. So it's more of
Do we have 5 minutes for flying to talk a little bit about the pilot stuff?
I could talk for hours about flying. Yeah. It's more exciting.
So I just have to say my dream is that in 8 years, my goal is I want to have a seaside place with a dock and a float plane so I can just fly anywhere. So what that, I just love the freedom of it. I'm curious what drew you to what do you love about flying? And as an actual pilot, what do you love about it?
I mean, the freedom. I always wanted to do it professionally, but probably fortunately life didn't work out that way. It's great. Like I bought a plane last February. It's not a fancy plane. It's a 60-year-old Piper Comanche. And what I like about it is I've been working on upgrading it. So, I'm putting in a new instrument panel at the moment, redid the interior over the summer. And it's just like, well, I can tell you that one thing is just like the amount of like the other few weeks ago before I took it down to do the panel, flew with a buddy of mine down to North Carolina to go have oysters for lunch at this island that Ocracoke, which is off in the Outer Banks. And usually it's like a 4 or 5 hour drive from here, but it was a 40-minute flight. So just go there, land.
Time travel.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. Like
it really is.
I mean, it's just like, we went up with the kids also to Ocean City, New Jersey, which 6-hour drive usually because there's a ferry involved and stuff. And it was an hour and 10 minutes. And we just land, go to the boardwalk, have some like kettle corn and go on amusement rides and do stuff. And then we just fly home. And it's totally like it's far.
I love it. And we're island bound, right? So it takes us 3 hours to get to the, the rest of the continent. Whereas if you go harbor to harbor, like in KG's dream here, it's a 15-minute Vancouver to Victoria harbor. It's like, once you do that, it's, it's hard to go back to that 3.5-hour grind in terms of, depending on how much you value your time, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to need to learn on land first before you get your seaplane endorsement. I think, I don't think it's an endorsement. I think it's a proper rating. At least I don't know how the CAA works, but with the FAA, it's a seaplane rating. So you typically would do, your single engine land, and then you get the seaplane thing.
The neat idea I have about being a pilot is similar to someone told me something about sailing, which is this idea, like when you're flying a plane, when you're sailing, it's like, if you don't do the right things, you'll die. You know what I mean? If you are fast and loose with anything, if you don't and so it's sort of like a metaphor for like, if you could live your life in that way, where you're always making the right decisions, you're not, I just think there's something there. Does that enter your mind at all as a pilot?
Oh yeah. I mean, half of training is just like, half of it is honestly, you're with your instructor and he's like, oh, engine just broke. And then like, what do we do? So, safety's drilled in and survivability, I guess, is drilled in your head constantly. And it does make it also fun when you take passengers up because typically no one's ever gone on a commercial plane where they've cut the engines. So, but you can do that with.
My uncle used to take me up and we would do these centrifugal force drills, and he would cut the engines, and we'd have a book that would raise up. I have really defined memories from that. Really, really special stuff to be able to share with your kids. Terrified them like that.
I mean, it's just a glider, right? And then it's fun when you talk to like family and stuff, and you're like, yeah, every time you've ever landed on a plane, it's a controlled crash, which is true. I mean, it's basically what it is.
Way to ruin my day. I guess I'm not missing travel as much these days during COVID. Now that I know. Very
flying
cool.
is very safe. I mean, the kind of flying I do is not as safe just because we don't have a co-pilot usually, and the piston engines tend to fail more than turbine, but it's still. Safety is a big thing. So yeah, we try our best.
It's a record of your choices too. Just in the same way, when you're flying, all your choices matter. The same, when you're building the electrical panel on your plane, that's up to you as well.
Well, you know what they say. I mean, like the safety records between general aviation and motorcycling, like people who ride motorcycles, are about the same. And a lot of people say riding motorcycles are really dangerous, and it is, or it can be. But the difference is, with a motorcycle, you're usually going to get killed because of some other external thing, like a car hits you or something, right? Rarely do mid-air collisions happen with aviation. It's usually a pilot's mistake, frankly. It's usually, and often mid-air issues are due to the pilot making a mistake. But usually you have more control over it. Now, there are stupid pilots who they'll be hungover and they run into a mountain. I mean, that's just, like that. We shouldn't have been flying, but
well, that's a real downer to end the podcast on. But very cool. Thank you so much for that. I think it's one of the cool things of people in this space, building these amazing digital businesses, can have these really interesting aspirations and can execute on them. And I think that's what's so exciting for all of us. So it's cool to hear about yours.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll be back in touch. But until then, it's been an absolute pleasure. Any parting words, KG? Oh, he's muted. Well, he's muted, so we'll see everyone later. Something's going on with his mic, but anyways, guys, we'll see you in D2C Plus. We hope to have you join us there. We've got some really exciting holiday stuff coming up here for D2C Plus members. We're just planning our first mixer where we're going to learn some interesting things. And yeah, a lot of special thanks to the sponsors that you'll hear about. And thanks everyone. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.